We're reading this one together. It contains of self-harm. In no way are we pushing for self-harm. If you're having suicidal thoughts, seek help. Reach out also to the Lord in prayer. I personally believe the Lord is also there to help a lot of individuals who reach out to Him, especially in that down moment. You'll be surprised the kind of things He can save you from. But this story goes thus. My wife cheated on me, ended her life. Let's jump into it. Give me your thoughts at the end of it. This happened in April of 2022. My wife had lots of issues with depression. We had a lot of ups and downs in our 5 years together. We had been married about 2 years when I found out she cheated on me with an old high school friend. At first, she told me it was only over text. But a few days later, she confessed to it being physical. I immediately packed some things and went and stayed with my family. She told me about the texting aspect of this. After 2 days of her begging me to come back, I went back to her house where she was still staying to get more things. In brackets, I only packed a small backpack for the heat of things. I got there and it immediately turned toxic and I left. We had 2 dogs, no kids, thankfully, in bracket. So part of the reason I wanted to get things was also to check on our dogs. Yeah. After, yeah, to also check on the dogs. All right, let's go ahead. After that visit, I told her I wanted her out of the house by the end of the next day. The next day came along, she was found dead. Then she overdosed on all her meds. I've been going to therapy for about a year now, and I still feel a decent bit of guilt and sadness on how it all ended. Her family hates me for her death. We have no contact. And that part still bothers me a lot. They hate me for finding a new relationship and new life about a year later. I am happy in my new relationship. We just moved in together, but the trauma still negatively impacts my life almost daily, including my current relationship. I suffer from a lot of anxiety, depression, and self-image issues now from the past few years. I'm missing lots of details, but there's still not a lot of closure. Am I wrong? I'm trying to move on and be happy after the worst 2 years of my life. Feel free to ask questions if this all doesn't answer a lot of things. Right. First of all, it's a very sad. Generally, whenever I hear stories concerning like suicide, it's a very sad thing, especially with people who are very suicidal. One thing you realize with people who are very suicidal is a lot of things can trigger them and push them towards eventually trying as much as possible to actually kill off themselves. So it's always, or many times, or like in a situation like this, it's always going to be somebody walking on eggshells. You're always, especially when you know those things which as a trigger towards this person, you're trying as much as possible to be sympathetic and not do these things which eventually force this person to eventually feel this way or which aggravates that feeling within the person. And in a situation like this, I feel like it was much more from and that's one of the reasons we can't really blame the guy, because at the end of the day, he found himself in a very emotional situation. These are people who have been together for 5 years. And then eventually, she goes out and cheats on him, lies about it at first. Then later on, probably they have moved past that. And later on, he discovers that also, oh, it was physical, it was not just acting. Much more reason why you see in a relationship, though there's a lot of unfaithfulness occurring in relationships of today, but still, as much as possible, we should try as much as possible to be as faithful as possible to the people who choose to be in relationships with. You just never know how it hurts another person. Sometimes in thinking that, not speaking from a perfect perspective, but sometimes when you're in a relationship, try as much as possible to consider how your actions eventually impacts the other person, how it affects the other person. So this guy, with everything happening, he's finding himself in a very, he's hurt. He leaves the house. But the situation here is in this, and sometimes that's how being emotional. While in your emotions, sometimes it's very easy to lose this logical aspect where you have to continuously sit and think about how you're acting is affecting the other person, especially in a situation like this where the person's actions are what has brought about this situation. So generally, one will not be expecting him to think about the negative impact that this particular situation was going to have on his suicidal girlfriend. So his wife had been, oh, sorry, his suicidal wife, sorry, his wife had been battling depression for years. So it's very, very sad. It's very, very sad. But the one thing I've learned is this: no situation could ever cause you to remain in a state of constant misery, to make you to remain in a position where on a continuous level you're sobbing, you're feeling miserable about yourself, you're feeling miserable about your actions. As time goes on, we need to heal, we need to move on, we need to keep going. You don't fall into a pit and choose to remain in the pit. You don't lay down on bed and choose and think of never getting up the next day. The next day you get up and you go about your activities because you know that's what you ought to do. So I see no reason why a person who probably will say we was in a pit should not come out of the pit. So kudos and big ups to you, man, for going to for therapy, for choosing to move on a year after the incident, and so just generally going about with your life. I really do hope you eventually, he highlights the difficulties he's feeling with respect to anxiety, with depression, with the self-image issue. Some of these things you eventually have to give them time, and you're in a 5-year relationship with somebody who suffered from these things. So it's just sometimes, and also the way it ended, it's normal that also with a situation like that, some of that kind of energy is eventually going to rub off on you because you probably were battling with this on a year. The other person who is depressed, automatically, if you hang around depressed people, you will eventually be the next depressed person. You hang around happy people, you might eventually end up being the next happy person. So it's the same kind of a situation here. But anyhow, let's hear what you guys have to say. Salt inevitable. That's a very long write-up. So I'll just probably read his and read another person's, and then we're done. Salt says, my late wife also suffered from mental health issues and all the stuff that comes with it. She took her own life after a really difficult 6 years of illness. Family blamed me, and most didn't even acknowledge me at the wake. Afterwards, I found out she had an affair while in treatment. I was devastated, but had to pick up the pieces and move on. It has been almost 6 years, and let me tell you, the grief will always be there, as well as some guilt and second guessing. I am glad to see that you are getting some therapy, and heck yes, there's going to be a lot to unwind and learn how to cope and deal with. You have every right to happiness. I just want to share something that another widower shared with me soon after it all happened. He said to take things slow. Don't provide details or even say what I should take slow. He didn't provide details or even say what I should take slow. But I am going to tell you what he was speaking about was to take any new relationship slow. Because the reality is that you are not in a headspace or have all coping and relationship skills you need right now. Take it slow. Continue to get that therapy. Talk to your partner about how you are feeling. Some stuff should stay with the therapist as you work it out. Get yourself in the right headspace to feel healthy and good about yourself. Only then will you really be able to find a long-term happiness and be that partner I'm sure you want to be. I am cheering for you from the sidelines. This is hard, but you got this. Best wishes for a happy and loving future. Same wishes, man. Best wishes. Cheering for you too from this end. At the end of the day, I don't think there's any other comments to read apart from that. It makes freaking sense. That comes from somebody who has gone through that experience and he's giving you practical experience in what he went through. He went through something similar. The only difference is he found out his wife cheated after she had already passed on. You found out before she passed on, and it was the way you handled it was one of the reasons which she eventually passed on. But I think, as he highlighted, time will heal these wounds. It might always still be painful, but you have to move on. You don't fall into the hole and remain in the hole. You get out of it and you keep moving on. So to every single other person out there, let's keep moving on, man. All right, big ups. Till next time.